Hey, welcome back. I'm saying welcome back actually to myself and to the live stream of consciousness itself. It's been a couple of weeks since we've actually had a live episode. So welcome back to everybody who's here. Uh, Welcome Lily. I see you out there, and Ninja Kitty, always out there waiting for us. Good to see you. I was off for a week or so. I had actually contracted COVID for the first time in a couple of years. It finally got to me, and fortunately, it was not. It was a mild case. I just had one day of symptoms. Kind of knocked me out, kept me in bed a little bit, and I've been feeling good for the last week or so. So I'm back in action. I'm here in my happy space. And I'm excited for a new evolution of the show. If you guys have been paying attention, I've got somebody helping me out. We've got Carrie Ann, who's helping me bring some magical guests to the show. So I've got a full calendar for June and some of July, and I'm going to be filling up the rest of that calendar. I'm excited. And this week I'm actually talking to a woman who I just briefly met. The last couple of weeks there was this pretty cool expo on Long Island called the New Life Expo. Let me just move my mic into position here. And it was interesting because it was a bunch of light workers and healers and different people with all different kind of talents that I know were there. So it was good to catch up with them. And then a bunch of people that I met and I'm going to have on the show. So it's very cool. I met a great musician, Fizz, at the show. I'm excited to have him on the show. A bunch of people. It was just a really exactly where I wanted to be, exactly the kind of the people I needed to meet. And this week, my guest is going to be Kelly Tallaksen. She is a transpersonal hypnotherapist, which is something very interesting to me. I have a good friend, Steve Interante. She may know Steve, who I've been friends with for a long time, and I actually saw him start his hypnotherapy journey from his first class, and he went from hypnotherapy into guiding meditations and all sorts of amazing, cool modalities and different gifts, sound healing he's doing now. So it's just amazing to see people open up once they start kind of realizing the different energetic connections. It's just amazing. I'm loving this world. Everybody knows this is my happy space, and I've gone on way too long talking. So let me welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Mrs. Kelly Tallaksen. What's up, Kelly?
Hi. Thank you, Michael.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you being able to reschedule last minute. We were supposed to do this last week, and of course I wasn't feeling well. So here we are this week. And I wanted to, I gave you a little briefing about the show. There's a couple of things that we do here. Ninja Kitty is welcoming you to the show.
Thank you.
So we love to have conversations about spirituality, conversations of what does it all mean without going too crazy and too deep.
Okay.
But and how do you really do that? I mean, once you start,
Where
you're already there,
Where to start?
So the show is called The Live Stream of Consciousness. The idea of consciousness itself is, again, what the basis of it is all about. So I would love for us to start there as kind of, let's define that. What is your definition of consciousness?
Well, consciousness itself I see in levels. So because I'm a hypnotist and I have to guide people from one level of consciousness to another, the definition of hypnosis means to be in an altered state of consciousness. And what that means is you're getting out of one level of consciousness and going into another. You're in an altered state. So if somebody comes into my office, they're in a very aware, conscious level. And what I mean by that is a beta state. You're aware of your environment around you, your 3D environment. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So you're from the conscious minds. And then my job is to get them into the subconscious. which would be a deeper level of consciousness. At times, I get them into what we call the unconscious, which is even deeper than the subconscious. And that's where there's repressed memories, ancestral memories, and past life memories. The subconscious would be memories we might be able to access easier, but the unconscious are really not easily accessible, but you can access them with deep meditation or hypnosis. But you have to be careful because some of those memories could be quite traumatic if they're going into past life, ancestral, or stuff you have suppressed or repressed from a long time ago. And then I also see things conscious as a higher level. So that's going beyond your local consciousness. And that's it. So when I do hypnosis, I do guide people into the unconscious, but I also expand another level of their consciousness, which would be non-local, which means they're out of that 3D realm. So you could think of it as spirit or spiritual self, but it's not local. It's expanded from around us, but it's not in the brain. I always think of the brain as a receiver of this consciousness. So we're pulling and channeling. We are communicating with other soul beings on a soul level, right? And we're also tapping into other dimensions. So that would be higher levels of consciousness. So that's the way I see it, in levels. But we all have these levels working through us all the time. And one is more dominant than the other at any certain time of the day, right? And it depends on our life and how we operate our lives. But consciousness itself, it just is. It's everything around us and through us that... If you think of the subconscious, it's memories. The unconscious is memories. The conscious mind is working with strategy and planning and its ego. And then the higher mind is working beyond all of that into expanded levels where you're in a higher place in your intuition and beyond.
I love that answer. I think you're the first person who actually took it and divided it. And I mean, I think we've all heard those definitions: subconsciousness, unconsciousness, and consciousness, and that is a part of consciousness. And I like also that you kind of referred to the basic level of consciousness as the 3D level of consciousness. So you're aware of your everyday environment. You're aware of, okay, I'm sitting in this chair in this space talking to Kelly right now. So that's the most basic level of consciousness. I do love that definition. I do want to say we had Sunshine saying hello to you, and Terry saying hello. A couple of people popping up. I just wanted to
hello everyone. Thank you for being here.
Acknowledge everybody for coming and
there's such a great support group. You have no idea, Michael.
I do. Amazing people, and that's what I'm really loving about this whole thing, you know, and being able to connect to people. The show started, it was like all of my friends who have these gifts. I love talking to them, but now it's gone beyond that. I'm getting to meet people who I don't know and kind of, again, break into these conversations. And you are, again, that's the first time somebody mentioned subconscious and unconscious, and I want to talk about all of those things because that's directly related to what you do, obviously. You know, with the hypnotherapy, and I also loved what you said. What did you say? You said the local version of consciousness. So like, you know, the non-local version of consciousness, the unconsciousness, the spirit realm, or whatever those other dimensions might be of consciousness. It's really awesome. I love the way you describe that. So before we get into talking specifically about you and what you do, and hoping to get some pretty deep into it, I also like to know kind of people's story of transformation. So I mean, is this something that you resonated with as a young child, like hypnotism and understanding different realms of consciousness, or is it something that you came into at some point?
I came into it about 20 years ago when I was working on healing myself. And I had no idea about the mind, body, and spiritual connections that we have. I was just mostly focused on that 3D consciousness and my physical body. And I was trying to heal myself from getting chronic sinus infections. because I've been to several doctors, and at one point, after all these tests, they just says, well, this is just the way it is. And I said, wait, I don't accept that. There has to be something here.
Right.
So I started digging, and thank goodness for Google and, being able to just look things up. And I did. And I've learned so much. But what really, really opened my eyes was, I don't know if you ever heard of Dr. Mercola, but he does he has a blog, and he talks a lot about nutrition. So I was following him and learning more and more and more about nutrition and the body and the healing. And I was feeling better, but it wasn't 100%.
Okay.
But I was reading an article, and it said, if you still get sinus infections, and you're not doing the following. And I'm like, okay, I got to read this, because I feel like I'm doing everything possible, everything.
Right.
And I'm looking down the list, and it's saying, if you're not drinking enough water. I said, oh, I'm drinking enough water. I'm exercising, and it says you're not eating enough fruits. And I said, oh, I'm living on them, you don't have the proper nutrition. I'm like, I buy it all from you, Dr. Mercola. Where you going with this? And then it got to the last thing, and it says that you're not harboring any childhood trauma. And that's when I went, wait, what does this have to do with my physical body? And that led me on such a research agenda that you wouldn't believe. It was nonstop after that. And of course, one thing leads to the other. When you start getting into childhood trauma, you start getting into suppressed, the subconscious mind. So that led to, how do you reach the subconscious mind? And then that led to hypnosis and meditation.
Right. I was going to say, where was the metaphysical connection? So that was the last thing on the list, was kind of that
childhood trauma. And I'm thinking, why would I have sinus infections from childhood trauma? And really what it comes down to is internal stress, but you're not aware of it. So I talk a lot about what people don't understand is they have internal stress of unresolved trauma from childhood. Now, let me talk about trauma. Trauma is anything that happened to you and you did not have the resources, at that time to work through it, to get yourself to a place of peace and feeling safe, So a trauma could be the first time you felt a threat to your love that you received from the people taking care of you. That's a trauma. Every divorce is a trauma. Every illness that you to somebody close to you or yourself could be a trauma. A loss of a pet. Obviously we get deeper into big trauma, with molestation and stuff like that, and bullying is big. And what happens is, talk about levels of consciousness. A lot of people are trying to resolve this stuff through their conscious mind, their 3D minds. So what they don't understand is you're just bringing logic, because the conscious mind is about logic. It's analytical. It's where your ego is, and it's your short-term memories. So if you're trying to bring logic into something that happened to you a long time ago that's suppressed within you, it's not going to work, because what's suppressed within you is at a different level of consciousness. So that is at the level of consciousness of fear. What's going to happen to me? Am I going to be okay? Is somebody I love going to be okay? And that's trapped. It's trapped in this consciousness.
The moment that you experienced it.
You're in a time zone. So you have this time zone. Here I am. I'm Kelly. I'm on a podcast that Michael's in. I know where I'm at right now. But what's running behind the scenes could be frozen trauma, which is trapped in the space and time of that event.
Right.
So what's trapped in there are all the emotions and the bodily reactions to them. So what do we mean by that? What's our knee-jerk reactions? It's when we snap really fast and we don't understand why we just snap, because what we just snapped at was really not a big deal. But it wasn't really coming from a level of consciousness of where we are now. It was coming from this hidden consciousness that's frozen. And something triggered it and woke it up and caused your body to react to it. And the fear response to your thoughts. Right?
Wow.
So we cannot try to heal trapped trauma using our logical mind.
Right.
We have to come in from.
And that's something similar. I think Einstein had said something like that, right? You can't solve a problem from the same level of logic that created the problem, right?
And
Yeah.
that's what makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to resolve it with your logic mind, but it's trapped in your unconscious mind and you don't have access to it,
Right.
how are you going to
Right.
resolve it? So what happens is ego steps in, and ego says, oh, I remember my mom and dad, they fought all the time. I get it now. I'm married, I have children. It's a lot of stress. I get it now. I get, this is the way life is. That's only one part of you.
Right.
You still have maybe a 5-year-old level of consciousness trapped inside of you
Right.
that has a whole different opinion about that. That's
Yeah.
still waiting to get to that place of feeling loved and safe.
Totally. Yeah.
So when we're on these different levels of consciousness, talking about, expanding and ascension and all that, these parts of us will keep us limited.
Right.
So part
And,
of us is trying to ascend. The rest of us is right back here.
right. Right.
It's
And it's unfortunate. I know it's a whole other conversation, but it's unfortunate that I feel like, our society, the way we're raised is on such a 3D level, of just dealing with that 3D stuff. We're not even equipped to understand anything beyond 3D. Let's just call it that. And for me, I constantly go back to this. It's the most simple thing to understand about existence, and that is the whole idea of energy exchange. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And I mean, even that most basic concept, we're not taught how to kind of just exist processing through that perception.
That's
Because
right.
if we were able to process through that perception, as a 5-year-old, we wouldn't get so frustrated,
That's
so
right.
easily.
That's right.
you know
That's
um
right.
yeah, so
But we didn't have the resources. So that's why I like to bring in the higher mind, because the
mhm,
higher mind has the resources. So
mhm,
we're
mhm,
talking our connection to our spiritual self and beyond.
mhm,
And when you
mhm.
bring that to that trapped energy, you're coming in not from ego, but you're coming with the love, compassion, because spirit knows nothing but love, compassion, acceptance, understanding. It's
Right,
all love, right? It's
right,
love
right.
consciousness. You
Yeah.
need to bring that into a frightened energy.
So when you talk about bringing in someone's higher consciousness, I'm imagining, and again, I mean, I know there's all these different levels that we're talking about. I'm imagining that that includes infinite past lives. I mean,
Yes, it does.
that's like
Mhm.
your entire existence from entirety,
That's right.
from
That's
from
right.
the,
It's
yeah,
infinite. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so hmm.
Well, that's what my book is about, The Voiceless Soul,
Yeah,
which is
let's talk about
getting
that.
great reviews. I talk about coming in, I teach people how to get themselves into a trance and to move into a higher level of consciousness and to go into yourself and ask for the part of you that's trapped, okay? That's trapped in feeling disconnected, or whatever you're feeling. Go into that part of you that's feeling what you're feeling now, because you're not really feeling that now. This part of you is feeling it, okay?
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
Go into that part and bring it to love. Find out what it needs from you. Give it what it needs. And a lot of
mhm,
times people do these exercises and say, oh my God, my inner child showed up and said, I just need a hug. Or
mhm,
they show
mhm,
up and say, I'm really angry at you,
hmm,
and you actually have to have a conversation. So it's having a conversation between one part of you and another part of you. You're coming in with your wise mind and you're
mhm,
helping out a part of you that's trapped, that didn't have the resources to get out of that energy. So
mhm,
what happens is it stays trapped in the body.
mhm.
Emotions and thoughts are energy, right? Like everything's energy, but this
Yep.
is energy trapped in the body. So what happens when it's trapped in the body? It causes stress. It affects the nervous system.
Mm,
So now, with low level stress, like I had with all those chronic sinus infections, and still I work through my inner child stuff,
mhm.
I was getting them. And then once I worked through that, they started going away because I
So
got rid of the stress that was happening inside of me, of a child part of me trying to figure out, why am I unlovable? Why am I not wanted? Why did my father do what he did? Why did my mother do what she did? So you have all of these thoughts, these unconscious thoughts. You don't even know they're there, but they're causing you stress.
well, that's what I was going to ask. If it's not too private to share, what did you find was that stress for you that you were holding on to that specifically cause sinus infections.
Okay, I can share that because it's written in my book, so there's no secret here. But my father was deemed mentally ill because he was very abusive, and he used to whack us a lot with this breadboard, and I have a lot of memories of that. But just the sound of his footsteps would put stress in a child. Because if one of us, and there were 5 of us, if one of us did something wrong, or if he found something that he wanted cleaned and it wasn't cleaned, or there was a toy on the floor, he would say, line up. And we all had to line up in age order. So I was 4th in line. So 3 of my siblings were getting whacked and screaming. So just the anxiety building up or they coming down the line. And then
that's traumatic just hearing about it.
But wait, so it gets worse. So in my book, I explain how it all happened one day. He really just wanted to get rid of us, and he did put on the gas in the fireplace, because we had a gas fireplace, and he put towels in the doorways and the windows, and he left. And he was in the middle of the night planning to kill his wife, my mom, and his 5 children.
Oh my goodness!
But my mom woke up, and what I really mostly remember from that, because I was sleeping, is my mother pulling us out of bed and throwing us in the car, like, go. She's like, go. She's got 5 kids, right? She's screaming, go, get out of the house, get out of the house. And we're all getting in the car. And I just remember my sister grabbed her blanket, but nobody else did. We were just like in shock. I just remember us fighting over her blanket.
Wow.
But, and I just remember going to the police station. But I also remember that the guy behind the counter, which looked very high up to me because I was a child, I just remember him looking annoyed that she was complaining.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was like, one of those. But I think that's how it was a lot back then. They just figured, this is a domestic problem. Why do you bother me with it? That type of thing.
Wow. I just got a strange smell of gas, if you believe it.
See, yeah, I believe it. And you know what? If you think about Chinese medicine, that could be connected to why there's sinus infections, because it goes to the smell.
Wow.
But the worst part after that is she took them back. So, you got to think about, you have, parents that are both really dysfunctional, and they're raising 5 kids. Right. And I say in the book, we're actually being raised by children in adult bodies.
Right.
Because what they were living through was their own childhood trauma, and it was being projected out. So what happens is, when you have kids, kids always trigger our inner child.
Right.
Because we see them and we see ourselves in them.
Sure. Yeah,
or if they get needy, we get upset because we didn't get our needs met. Right? So if we didn't get our needs met, we don't want somebody needy coming to us, because we see that as something that's not acceptable. You don't come to me with your needs. Right. Because if you grew up and your needs weren't met, you think you're not worthy of it. So when a child gets needy, you get upset. That's automatic reactive behavior from your own inner child. Right. That's why I always say, I think it should be a law before you can get married and raise a family or have a child, is to go through this healing process.
Sure. Yeah.
And we wouldn't have generational trauma like we have now.
Well, and that's the thing. That's interesting to me, because I feel like it's so current right now, generational trauma and the shift, the spirituality shift in awareness and all of this stuff. And I feel like, do you feel, for me, I know, and I don't consider myself a light worker, although, we all are in our own way, but like, I feel like this ultimate forgiveness towards society, but this ultimate awareness of, wow, look at how it is, you know what I mean? And most people can't even turn around and look at themselves and say, okay, this is how it's been and how I've been raised, you know what I mean? But it's like, I feel like this ultimate forgiveness towards everyone. I can't get angry at people for the way that they've been raised all of these years. When we were talking about centuries of control and this shaping of the paradigm that we're in, it's like, it's amazing to be a part of the undoing of it all and witnessing it. So I'm getting off track, but do you find yourself as a light worker forgiving?
I want to piggyback off of that, because I 100% agree with what you just said. It is about ultimate forgiveness. And the way I mentioned in my book is I said, but before there can be that forgiveness, we have to have an understanding. We have to have compassion. We have to realize that what's going on is generational trauma. What your parents did or didn't do comes from their unconscious. Here's a fact, and I don't know if you know this. Our personalities, our daily activity, everything we do, everything we say, the way we operate, 10% comes from the conscious mind. Everything else comes from below our awareness. So we're really operating below our awareness, right? And there's constant triggers. So my father was triggered. So I did deeply forgive him. I had the compassion, and that's how I healed. If I could not forgive him, what does that mean? It means I'm still entwined in his energy.
Right.
Okay. I'm trapped in his energy now. I'm angry. What is anger doing to me? It's causing me stress.
Right.
So the only way to heal is to come to that place of deep understanding, compassion, forgiveness of self and others. And the reason we have to forgive ourselves is because every time we feel somebody had the ability or control over us to hurt us, we forgot our value.
Right.
We back down and let them define us.
Right.
So we have to forgive ourselves for forgetting who we are, for allowing somebody to take our power.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and again, that's kind of what part of what I'm saying about society. You know, it's almost like the whole idea of self-love, like people don't even really understand what that is, and it's been so sabotaged, you know, to create that member of society who is afraid, who is just, you know, go into a job that they hate, you know, just to survive. And you know, I mean, again, it's so refreshing to see all of this finally changing, and people kind of, you know, almost like opening their eyes to the sunlight and being like, oh my God, wait a second, you know what I mean? I can go to the beach today.
Yeah, we're definitely going through a major transformation collectively. But I think there's still a lot of people still stuck, and that's because they don't want to do the deeper work, and they're afraid of it. And what I like to tell people is that 5 minutes of you going into those memories, and what it is really, Michael, is our consciousness on a whole, right? As human beings, we like everything to be finished, or it's going to keep playing. All right, it's got to come to completion. When you're trapped in trauma, you didn't come to completion. You're still in survival mode.
Right.
So if you're in survival mode, you are going to self-sabotage. Okay. You don't realize what you're doing. And speaking of self-love, my most recent article with Wake Up World that was published at Wake Up World was called the biggest obstacles to self-love. And what those biggest obstacles are is that we're not going into that deeper part of us and healing and completing what needs to be complete. So what's happening, there's certain parts of us, and you can call them shadow parts. If you ever heard of that, it's called the shadow self. It's called the disowned parts. Dr. Carl Jung talks a lot about this. He coined the word shadow. So what that really means is those are parts of us that we're rejecting because we feel the world rejected them. So we hide them, and then we create a false self to basically compensate for that. Right? So now we have a false self, but our false self is actually not who we are, and can actually be quite annoying because sometimes we take it to the extremes. So suppose that we came from a divorced family, you know, our parents divorced when we were very young, and we rejected the idea that marriage is good, right? So now we decide that it's not good. So that's an unconscious thought, right? And we don't realize that as an adult, we're actually sabotaging our relationships as soon as we get intimate with somebody, because our unconscious mind is saying, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. This doesn't work. It doesn't last, you know, or it ends up in fighting all the time, you know, so that comes out. But if it's a shadow part, what could show up there is that, say, a parent said to you, you talk too loud, lower your voice. Your voice is too loud. I can't take it. Just lower your voice. Like, parents say those things. And then what happens is you might have a very special gift of being somebody who does podcasts, but you can't get yourself out there to do it because you won't use your voice.
Right.
But that's a part of you. You reject it. You say, oh, the world doesn't like my voice.
Interesting.
right? So that's your
Mm.
shadow self. So now you overcompensate and you get super, super, super quiet to be acceptable by the world. And next thing you know, you have people saying they're stuck up or they're too shy or I can't see me being around them. They're just, they don't speak, you know? So
Right.
now that's a false self. So our most beautiful gifts are trapped in our shadow, our rejected parts.
Wow. So it's interesting because I feel like, you know, I feel like I'm pretty aware and I'm pretty intuitive, and I see a lot of struggle, people struggling with life, and
Sure.
this is why I love to have these conversations, and I love to just be around people and inspire people just with my own energy of hope and love and who I am. Um, but I certainly understand, like, I'm not perfect, you know what I mean? And I often feel like, oh, I don't have any deep trauma like I see other people struggling with to
Mhm.
heal from. And I know that's a little bit of ego there
Yeah.
because I do come from a divorced home, you know what I mean? And I do feel like as happy as a person as I am and as much love that I know I have to share, I know there's probably some work I could do with you, like, and I'm curious as to your approach, because it sounded like to me like you almost provide people with these self-guiding tools, almost like maybe you guide through a hypnosis session, but then you also kind of leave that person with, here are the tools that I'm using to get you to this place, so that I would be able to do it on my own and kind of explore that. So maybe you can talk about that. What's the
Well,
technique?
actually, in both my books, The Voiceless Soul and Healing Our Unhealed Parts, give the exercises at the end. So I always tell my clients, like, also they can go on my website and download the Healing Your Unhealed Parts. Not only is it an ebook, but it also comes with a 3-part healing series,
Mhm.
which is an understanding of the levels of the mind and how everything gets trapped inside of us. And then it's 2 meditations. One of them is taking you out of your body.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
when I say, the reason I want people out of their body is to make sure they're out of ego. So they
Mhm.
come in with spirit only.
Mhm.
Okay. So I guide them into a trance and then I expand their consciousness out of their body. So their body is there, but the consciousness, okay, of who we are comes out of the body at a high level. And when it's out of the body, it's automatically at a high level because it's not trapped in the 3D experience.
Mm.
Right. So
Okay.
you have this higher understanding and you get to basically observe what's going on inside of you.
Mhm.
So I'm asking you to raise your consciousness. And by using this high level of consciousness, which is your intuition, very heightened, is to go into the parts of you that are trapped in the low level consciousness and to
Mhm.
bring these parts of you what they need. And I say, work with one part at a time.
Mhm.
So I am what's called a parts therapy specialist. And that's when I work with the different parts of us that are trapped below conscious awareness. Because a lot of those parts of us, even though they're all there to protect us, they're basically working against each other and sometimes against us without knowing,
Mm.
like our shadow parts.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have to be quiet because I rejected this other part of me. So, and then we also have what's called a protector part, which comes in and protects the wounded part that was told to keep her mouth shut. So that was a wound. I
Mhm.
feel
Mhm.
like I've just been a disappointment to my mother,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
whatever that is, that's a wounded part. Then you have the other part that's kind of like a rescue part that says, I will do the opposite. I'll create a false.
Hmm.
And then you have the protector that protects that wounded part from anybody accessing it so that the false self could be the dominant personality. But again, it's not who we are.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
work with these different parts to help dissolve the false self and bring forward the true self, okay, but healed. So we have to go, I got to work past the protector part. And
Mhm.
that's all
Mhm.
the training in parts therapy, how to negotiate with the protector part, which is really coming from ego that blocks anybody from going after somebody's deep trauma.
Right.
That's why a lot of these modalities don't work because you have protector parts. And if you don't, so there's a lot of great modalities out there, but they have limitations if there's unconscious repressed wounding that has protector parts around them. You can't get to them unless you get into an altered state of consciousness. You have to get out of the ego that's protecting it.
Yeah, and it's you know, again, it's interesting, and I'm applying this to myself here, obviously, because you know, I feel like I've been in a good place, like I said. You know, a lot of the people I speak to who are at very high levels of consciousness, you know, tell me things that validate a lot of my thoughts. And I have been kind of, it's weird to even say, but I've been very proud of my ability to not live through ego, you know, and that's kind of a weird contradictory statement in itself, right?
Right.
You know, because how could you be proud to not live through ego? But I do recognize some things in my current state, you know, of belief systems, um, that I'm struggling with, you know, and one of them is specifically financial, you know, my own belief system about money and my own relationship with money, which again is pretty clear to me, but I just haven't been able to kind of, I want to say get past it, but sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to get past it. Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be, you know, and you know, I mean, with all the belief systems that I have, is, you know, the most comforting one is everything is as it's supposed to be, right? So at any given moment, I've got to just be like, all right, it is what it is, and accept it. But there is something inside of me, especially lately, that is just itching and is like, you are the tip of your iceberg that's just been sticking out of the ocean. Is, you know, you're ready to turn around and show the rest of this iceberg to the world.
Yes.
And that's where I am. And uh I'm just trying to get there, and I feel like, you know, meeting people like yourself, like maybe we should talk privately about a session, you know what I mean, and
Absolutely.
we should work together, you know, somehow to help each other, you know what I mean, because I feel like that's what I feel like in meeting all of these amazing people like yourself is, I don't only feel like, wow, this person can really help me, but I feel like I have something for them, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Well, I always say if there's any part of your life where you're limited, then you should do the deeper work, because you'd be surprised to find out something very innocent. Okay.
mhm,
Like I did have somebody who came to me and said, I can't get past these money blocks.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
And he went back to being 10 years old on his bicycle, delivering newspapers and coming home and showing his mother how much he made because his father died when he was young.
mhm,
And she would say, that's enough to maybe buy us a loaf of bread.
mm.
And it made him feel so bad because he was so proud.
Wow,
And that made him feel that he could never do better.
that makes so much sense.
So
I wish I could recognize how something simple like
well,
that.
it might be trapped energy,
Right, right, right.
right? So it's
Wow.
always worth exploring.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to be limited beings on this planet. We're supposed to be unlimited. We're supposed to be inspired. That's where spirit comes from.
Right.
So what happens is if we're not being inspired and doing what we're out or what we came here to do, there's probably some kind of heavy energy
Mhm,
that's holding our spirit down.
mhm,
And the way I talk about it in the book, I say we block the energy from our burdened soul, because we collect burdens our whole life from childhood. I even say as far back as the womb. We collect burdens because we're collecting energy. We're collecting different frequencies.
mhm, mhm,
And then we have to get out there and just be ourselves. We don't even know who we are. So
mhm.
we have to go deeper into exploring, get rid of those false beliefs that we created to protect ourselves when we felt rejected by somebody who was taking care of us or somebody who was teaching us, because there's a
Right.
lot of rejections that go on as a child. It's not just your parents, your siblings, there's neighbors, there's bullies, there's teachers, there's so many people, clergymen, you know. And you know, you get a hold of a child's mind, they believe anything an adult tells them, anything.
Right. Right.
So if you grew up, an adult is telling you almost every day of your life, what did you do? Are you crazy? You should be ashamed of yourself. You're going to believe it.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that trapped energy, those thoughts are inside of you. Now, you may logically say, oh my God, my mother said that over and over and over again, but I know who I am. I know I'm not ashamed of myself. There's still a childhood part of you trapped in that energy. So when
Right.
I talk about parts therapy, this part is in conflict with this part.
Right.
So what I was sharing on Facebook was, come and join my podcast, because I want to explain to you how we're in conflict, how parts of us are working against each other. Because you got one part of you that's wise, grown up, mature, spiritually connected, and then you have parts of you that are very disconnected from the rest of you. So you could call it a fragment of your soul, you could call it dissociation, but whatever it is, it's trapped energy and you're not aware of it. So in order to prevent these conflicts, you have to go in and find out where you are in conflict inside yourself. Because if your conscious mind, the thoughts, are in conflict with the subconscious or unconscious mind, the thoughts that are there are recorded in there, you stay stagnant. And that's the same thing with the law of attraction. The law of attraction only works with the subconscious, not the conscious mind.
And I would imagine that most people are suffering from that exact.
Exactly. So they said,
conundrum.
I've been holding the thought and I've been praying and I've been meditating and I've been saying that I'm going to have this and this is going to happen. I'm going to get better. I'm going to speak up or whatever. And it doesn't happen. It's because the universe is listening to your subconscious. So if you're in conflict and the subconscious mind is saying, I don't deserve to be heard, nobody wants to hear my voice, or I'll never make money, it'll never be enough, or I'll never be tall enough, pretty enough, whatever we're saying inside of us, that's what the universe is hearing. So you need to bring the conscious mind and the unconscious mind in alignment.
That's what I've got to do. So I didn't realize that you have a podcast that you do, a regular podcast that you.
No, not me. I did a podcast with Sunshine. I think she's on here.
Okay.
Sunshine has a
Podcast that you're on guest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to bring up, I have your website here, heartsandharmonyhypnosis.com. If people want to, check out some of the stuff that you're doing there. I know for sure, like I said, we'll talk after the show and see if we can set something up, because you know what, I as amazingly happy as I am, and I know that I'm on this amazing path, I think there are things that I could do. I kind of stopped, Steve Interante, I had mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, I love
Steve. Is such a great guided meditation expert who really, I mean, I've just watched him help so many people who would come and be like, I've never meditated, I can't meditate, and the way he explains it, and the way he guides you through it is just so perfect.
He's a powerful but gentle soul. He really is.
He is really amazing, and it's always been inspiring to me as well. There are some people who I feel like I connect with on a personal level who, I want to guide through meditations, like on a personal one-on-one, just and be like, hey, I think I can help you see something different, see something that you hadn't seen before, because I feel like once you make that step, you can't go back.
That's right. That's right. You just keep going forward, but that's the beauty of it. But what I will tell you is I have a YouTube channel and I have guided meditations on there. And one of them takes you into those different parts of who you are. It's called the Ascension Meditation. And it's to help you bring those parts of you that can't ascend because they're still trapped with unfinished business. You have to help them complete what needs to be complete, and then they can ascend with the rest of you. So that guided meditation, and there's a couple of other ones on there, and there's information talking about the different parts of us, and then talking about the different levels of the mind. There's a whole bunch of information on there,
and that can be found on your website, your YouTube channel.
Yeah, they just got to click on the little thing, and also if they Google my name, a lot of my articles might come up. Because I have published articles at Wake Up World, PsychCentral, Natural News, Prevent Disease, and Elephant Journal.
Awesome. Awesome. As our friend Sunshine says very often, you have to feel it to heal it.
Yes. Sunshine says it all the time, and she's right. If we're not going to allow ourselves to feel it, which is in the body, right? It is somatic, then we are not going to heal it. It is trapped in the body. The
Yeah,
body is the subconscious mind. It's not here. Okay,
absolutely.
that's
And
great.
so that that reminds me of, do you subscribe to Louise Hay
Yes.
at all, her train of thought,
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah, that and traditional Chinese medicine,
Mhm.
and which is interesting because I think I probably had about 3 clients who have experienced breast cancer, and right away I said to him, "Is there a disconnect with you and your mother, or you and a child?"
Mhm.
All 3 of them said yes. And that comes from traditional Chinese medicine that, it has to do with the breastfeeding. So whenever there's a disconnect, it means we're holding dark energy there because we can
Mm.
feel the disconnect between mother and child.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the child could grow up and get it, or the mother could get it because they've disconnected from the child. Um,
Wow.
or if they tell me they have a backache, and I'll ask them, do you feel somebody in your life did not support you? Because the
Mhm.
back is all about you being able to be supported so you can stand straight. So if your
Right.
back curves like that, it could be you're holding the energy of I don't have support. So I love looking into, traditional Chinese medicine and Louise Hay stuff, when it talks about the connection between
Right.
what's happening in our body and what's happening in our thoughts.
Right. So here's, I just had an interesting thought, and again, I'm kind of thinking about myself here, because I grew up on Long Island, and I have a brother, I have a sister also, but me and my brother, we grew up with very different perspectives as far as like those blockages that I'm talking about.
That's
I
right.
have this financial block, and he doesn't.
Right.
He's got this amazing, abundance,
Hmm.
when it comes to financial, and it's kind of interesting because I could always remember him, growing up and being like, oh, I love money, and to me it was always like, oh, and it was, again, it affected the both of us, differently. And again, he's super happy, super great, loving dad of my nephews, and I couldn't be happier for him, for the way he lives his life, and I'm also super happy. But the way we live our life is very different, and it would
Yeah,
be interesting to just find out why, what happened. Like, I mean, I know we're different people, you know what I mean, and that's the whole idea of existence, right? To go through life through our own perspective of
that's
of
right.
of, of how we see it. But it's just interesting the way we're so opposite when it comes to those things. But I would say when it comes to love, we're both the same, you know what I mean.
Right.
We
Right.
are able to express love, in a way that I'm super grateful for, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. um you
Well,
know
remember, they're thought forms, right, Michael? So your brother had the thought form that he loves money and he decided that money's good.
hmm
Something might have happened when you were younger where you decided, no, money's not that great. And
hmm
then you created this belief
hmm hmm
where you rejected it. Okay.
right.
But the only way to really find out, honestly, is I would take you on a deep inner journey, and I want to talk to the part of you that's preventing you
hmm
from fully expanding into, abundance.
Yeah, I want you to
Because
talk to that
there's
part of me too.
definitely a block there. It's a
Yeah.
block, right?
Yeah,
Block,
yeah.
block. I'm
That
still
that
working
part
on
of me,
myself.
needs a talking to, for sure.
Yeah, right. Just that part of it. But and there's parts of me I still have to work with,
Right,
But we're made up of parts. We're the sum of all of our parts. And
right.
a lot of them are in conflict. A lot of them are holding us back. But every single part of us is trying to protect us.
hmm hmm
So it's like the wounded part says, I'll be quiet because I was told my voice is loud. The
right,
protector says, I'll protect you from anybody hurting you again. And then
right.
the other part, the one that's going to be quiet, it says, I'll protect you by making sure nobody ever says you're loud again.
Right.
So, but they're all really out to protect us, but they don't realize they also limit us because they're protecting us from a level of survivability.
Sure.
We already know we're not children. We can survive. We're adults, right? We're self sufficient now, but
Right.
we have child parts inside of us that are still stuck in survival.
Right.
And that's what holds us back.
And I'm realizing something interesting, because here I am, I'm thinking, oh, I need this help, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But the truth of the matter is, like I said, I have never been more sure of who I am, more excited about seeing my ability to help people and affect people the way that I do. You know what I mean? So it's like, even though there are these, I don't even want to call them doubts or whatever, you know, these little things that do need to be worked on, there's all these amazing things going on
That's
that
right. That's right.
I am working on, you know, as we speak. That's what we're doing right here, you know. I
Because
mean,
that's the part of you that is not trapped. So
right.
you are living through your spirit. There's no trap.
Yeah.
But then you have parts of you, because you're still having the human experience. They're
Yeah.
still here in that 3D experience. The rest of you is not.
Right.
You're ascending. You're in your spirit. You're in the love of life. You're doing what you love to do. You're feeling great about everything.
Right.
Right? That's most of you. But then
Yeah.
there's just
I would
other
say.
parts of you
Yeah.
that if you feel you're limited in any way, you want to address that.
Right.
So you can fully expand. And then it's watch out, Michael's back. Like,
Yeah,
here
yeah,
I
no,
am.
no, and I get excited about that, because it's like I feel it, you know. I mean, you know, it's been quite a few years, a bunch of years right now, but you know, I can remember moments in this, and I hate saying the spiritual journey, but I can remember moments in making realizations, you know, and just how the world gets lighter and lighter and lighter. You know, it's like you can see all of the light and the love in the world, and with who you are. um and you know, it's amazing. Oh, we got a question here. We've got Laura asking us, hi all, can hypnosis help in unblocking the traps?
That's yes, of course. Yes. But it has to be the type of hypnosis I do. It has to be transpersonal. It has to work with the mind, the body, the spirit. Otherwise, the ego gets in the way. So
Mhm.
when I say we have trapped stuff, I mean, I've even taken people, like I said, I take them in a deep trance so that their body feels like it's just lifeless, like it can't even move. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then I'm expanding consciousness. So what I did was, when the body relaxed, the conscious mind went with it. And then I'm expanding the energy of the unconscious and subconscious for it to be viewed by the higher level of consciousness. So I'm
Mhm.
saying I said, first I guide them into a deep trance, and I guide their higher mind into 3 levels of consciousness. We go through different dimensions. So
Mhm.
we go from the higher self to the super conscious to universal consciousness.
Mhm.
And from there, you can examine, because you're in a high level of intuition now, you are with spirit
Mhm.
collectively.
Mhm.
And what
Mhm.
I do from there is, if one of the things that comes up from the unconscious has to do with, I don't feel loved by dad. Okay, now you're an adult. Dad loves me. I love him. We worked it out. But you have a child conscious says, dad doesn't love me. You're in conflict. Okay, this comes
Mhm.
up. So when I'm
Mhm.
going into what limits you, and you say, I feel unworthy, and I say, who or what made you feel unworthy? And you say, my dad. I said, okay, in what way does dad make you feel unworthy? Go to the age you are when you first felt that feeling from dad that you're not worthy. And then I start doing what's called age regression, and I start counting backwards really fast. And I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, be there now, daytime, nighttime, where are you? I'm in my bedroom. What's happening? Dad yelling at me. I get the whole story. I'm talking to the child now.
Mhm.
But now I bring in spirit, and I say, spirit, I want you to find out, go by this child, see if you can get close and see if you can give this child what this child needs right now. Find out what it needs. It might say, I need a hug. I need to know everything's okay. But also what I do is, because you're in spirit, I say, spirit, bring in the consciousness of dad. Spirit brings in the consciousness of dad, because when we're not in the body, we have soul to soul communication quite easily. And this is
Mhm.
how I've helped a lot of people heal their relationships, by them being able to hear from the consciousness of the person that made them feel bad, or the person they have a disconnect from, or the person who has crossed over to the other side that they have unfinished business with. So we bring in their spirit. So
Mhm.
I'll say, bring in the consciousness of dad. And I'll say, little one, tell me when dad's with you. He's here. Okay.
Mhm.
Dad, your little one feels you don't love her, blah, 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 blah. She feels this, she feels that. What do you want to say to that? Oh, I love her very much, and I'm so sorry. It's when they come in from consciousness of spirit, they never come from ego. So it's not going to be, well, because she's a troubled child.
Right,
That's
of course.
ego.
Right.
They
Right.
always come in with, I had no idea she felt that way. I love her very much. And then I say to the child, is there anything you want to say to dad? You know, and the child might say that, you know, the adult, but the child part's coming out. They might say, I didn't know that. I never felt that way. And I say, okay, let dad respond to that. And there's a whole communication going on, but it's from this other consciousness. That all make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And is that, I mean, I'm imagining, is that whether or not dad is passed or not?
It doesn't matter.
You're
It doesn't matter
still
because
connecting with the consciousness level.
consciousness is consciousness. Whether you're in the physical or you're on the other side, you're still consciousness, right?
Right.
But if you're coming in from on a soul level, you're speaking from a higher level of you're speaking truth.
Right.
You're speaking from that higher level.
I almost feel like we're actually doing some work here between you and me because you know, my relationship with my dad was not super close, but it wasn't. I'm grateful for loving parents. You know, I didn't have a lot of traumatic stuff. It was a divorce, yes, but there was no like crazy fighting and jails and all of these, you know, these crazy things and abuse. But you know, my relationship with my dad was not the greatest. Probably he had a better relationship with my brother, right? And I'm going into all of this personal stuff, but when he passed, I feel like it was a very, very spiritual experience. I feel like we connected and we worked everything out. And I said, you know what, maybe we were different, but there was no doubt that we loved each other. And there was, you know, it was just all very peaceful and obvious. But I do feel like there's some stuff there that I might need to revisit as far as my relationship with him that made it that way. And even though that it got resolved on a general level, maybe there's some specifics there that are
right. But that's on a different level of consciousness, Michael, because you came in with your spirit and you held dad and you were with him and you spiritually connected to him. You were there during his transition. You were loving him and honoring him and really holding the space, which is beautiful.
Right.
But there might be another level of consciousness that's the level of a small child that's trying to figure out, why is dad disconnected from me? What's wrong with me that he's not connecting with me? That's the trap I'm talking about. And in a scenario like that, I would just bring in dad's energy. Right. So now I would say to you, okay, dad's on the other side. So I would take you up 10 steps and cross you to the other side of the veil and ask dad to come in, and you guys would have finished complete so he can explain to you it wasn't that way. I love you. I've always loved you. And there's always a lot of tears, but there's a lot of love that happens when we do these sessions. But transpersonal is when you're working with these different levels. You're not just telling the person while they're in a trance, you're going to be fine. All your money issues are going to be gone. You're growing, you know, and nothing can stop you. That's beautiful, but it's limited because it's not reaching these deep levels of trapped trauma.
The more personal, actual.
Right. And that's where the transpersonal work comes in.
Right. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I definitely am interested in this because I just feel like there's something there. There's
always something there. I always tell my students, please, because I teach this soul level healing, which is teaching them age regression, parts therapy, and bringing in spiritual awareness. And it's all the things I do. I mean, it's all wrapped up in one beautiful training where you can take people so deep and so high in their intuition to help them out of all of this pain in 1 or 2 sessions. That's how quick it works. And the thing is, I say to them, listen, when you guys get out there and you start doing this a lot, you feel really comfortable, I want you to come help me. Because I need someone that's going to take me so deep in my unconscious, because there's probably leftover stuff. And I'll tell you an example. And I think
you want somebody to hypnotize you?
Yeah. Because
wow. All right. Well, we're definitely going to talk then for sure.
Well, I got to tell you, what's really interesting is I was always working on healing my relationship with my dad. So I was working on those parts of me that felt abused by him, neglected, rejected, all that stuff. And I was getting better and better. The sinus infections were going away, but I was still at a place where I didn't feel in that self-love. So I said to one of my colleagues, I said, you need to do some inner child work on me. There's something that's stuck, and I've done all this work with my dad. I said, but something's missing. So she started focusing on my dad. So she says to me, all right, I want you to go back to when he's always hitting all of you. And then she says, tell your dad I'm not a bad girl. I'm not a bad girl. And I couldn't say it. She goes, say it. I said, I can't. And she says, why? And all of a sudden, this image, this whole event popped in my mind, which was unconscious because I didn't remember it consciously. But this was the golden ticket. What happened, what I saw was me running to the front door because my mom was walking in her waitress uniform. My father didn't work. My mother worked 2 jobs to make up, to raise 5 kids because he wouldn't work.
Wow.
So, but when he was home, he would get frustrated with us, and that's when all the hitting would happen. When she was home, it was all lovey-dovey with the kids. So we always loved when she was home because we weren't going to get hit.
Right.
She walks in the door, and I was like, oh, my God, now we're safe. So I run up to her, and I go, Mom, because she wasn't expected to come home. Something happened. She had to leave work early, and he didn't expect her, and we all just got hit. So I lowered my pants, and I said, look what Dad did. And I was swollen and purple and blue, and you name it. I was really swollen. So what did she say to me? She goes, well, what did you do to deserve it? So now what did that do? That confirmed I'm bad. But I wasn't focusing on that because that was so unconscious.
Wow.
I was so focused on healing with my dad that this other part of me felt Mom was rejecting me and called me bad.
Right.
So how could I think I'm good if my own mother says, what did you do to deserve it? So as far as I was concerned, I deserved this type of punishment. So what does that do? That causes self-sabotage. That causes me to self-punish now. So that so anything good in my life, I reject unconsciously. So this is why it's important to do the transpersonal work, to get into these trapped energies.
Right.
Because they're unconscious. I didn't know I had this thing with my mom.
Sure. Yeah.
I buried it. It was so painful. I buried it.
Wow. Yeah, totally. So Laura is saying, wow, that's very powerful and positive. I think that's from a little while ago, but she's definitely receiving the energy.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being here.
Um,
Laura, you would enjoy my book. She would love my book because it really takes you through all of this, and then it takes you through spiritual healing and exercises. It's phenomenal.
Awesome. And that is what is that? The Voiceless Soul?
Voiceless Soul. It's all about trapped energy. There's no voice, but it's trapped energy in the soul. And the thing is, we did not express when we were children, right? Because we didn't have the words, we didn't have the cognitive abilities, or we were afraid to speak up, okay? Or we were in shock, okay? And whenever trauma happens, we lose all our cognitive abilities anyway. And that's what people understand. So a child, even if they're 10 years old and have some cognitive ability, they lose that cognitive ability. They go right into the reptilian brain, right? Survival mode, the moment there's a threat to love or safety. So there's no story to it. It's just all in the body at this point. It's trapped energy. So the whole idea is the voiceless soul is all this trapped energy inside of us. It's all the parts of us that didn't voice our pain. So if we don't voice it, we don't express it, then it gets trapped. Because the subline in the voiceless soul is how to release trapped. Actually, I forgot. It's how to express and release deep wounds of unworthiness.
Yep. I was just gonna read it.
Yeah. So actually, throughout the book, I talk about the unworthiness trap, and I talk about how our parents got pulled into a trap of unworthiness because of their upbringing, and they unconsciously drew us into that trap with them. But we are the generation of heroes because we're breaking the cycles. Because we are growing and expanding and evolving so quickly, and the energy of the planet is supporting this ascension. We have got to take advantage of this, and we have to heal the shadow. We have to get into that trapped energy. We have to fully ascend, because not only do we need it individually, we need it collectively. We're trying to basically save a planet here. Yeah. So that's why we got to do this individually.
Yeah, no, and I'm realizing too, like people like you and I, who are inspirational to others, and they're like, oh my God, you've got this. We're also still working through these energies, and we've still got do it. And this is
We're
kind of what
human. We're
this
still
is.
human and we're still
Yeah.
working, but at least we're working at it. So the idea is for me to bring the information that if you think you're doing it all, maybe you're not, because there might be trapped energy. And if you want to fully get into that ascension process,
Yeah.
which I know I'm not there yet, but I am going through a transformation because I'm doing it. I'm healing it. I'm learning about my
I
pattern.
love what you said about how, when you do it, it helps you. You're helping other people and bringing
That's
them to
right.
those
And
places,
it
but
helps me.
it's also it's bringing you to those places kind of
That's right.
vicariously and with the experience. I mean, it's
And
just
people are showing up in
amazing.
my life that I'm seeing my patterns. And now that I'm at that level where I really understand it and I could see my own patterns, I can work with them.
Amazing.
But if we don't see them because they were formed when we were traumatized children, but there's still patterns in us and they're still activated at times, and we don't see it, somebody might bring it to you. And they're going to bring it to you through pain.
Totally.
But
Well,
that's how we work.
you know what? You're getting a bunch of endorsements. Sunshine is saying you're a true
Thank you,
inspiration.
Sunshine.
Tina is saying that
Tina, I love Tina.
she did some work with
Oh,
you.
yeah.
And
She did an LBL with me. That's a Lives Between Lives session. Life
Life
changing.
Between Life session.
Yeah, you familiar with that, Michael?
No, what is that? Tell me what that
That's
is.
Dr. Michael Newton's work. Okay.
Okay.
And he always said that one LBL, which is 5 hours, right, Tina? Like a long session, but she was amazing. She is amazing. But you go through a full past life regression, and then we follow, obviously, the body expires in that past life, and we follow the soul into the spirit world through meeting with spirit guides, meeting with the council, meeting with your soul group, and all kinds of other things, and then planning this life. Why you chose your parents, why you chose this body, why you chose to be a woman, why you choose New York to live in, whatever it is. But you're meeting with your soul group. And what I do is in the intake sheet, I ask you for your 10 most important characters, and we call them characters, in your current lifetime. And that would probably be your spouse if you're married, or significant others, your family, mother, father, siblings, relationships that were very significant. Anything that broke your heart or taught you a valuable lesson, they are a soulmate. So we want to know who they are, because you're going to meet with them in the spirit world. Now, people say to me, wait a minute, why are they in the spirit world if they're still here? We don't bring in our full spirit. We only bring in about 20%. But people that are very highly spiritual, and even people that are autistic, may have come in with too much spirit. They're bouncing off the walls. It's too much. This 3D world is just way too much for all that spirit to handle. So we don't come in with all of it. So what we're meeting is with the other part of their spirit that's still in the spirit world. And we're having spiritual communication with them about past lives together, why we came into this life together, why did I choose you as my mom? Why did you treat me like that? Why did you abandon me? And then the mother say, because I was to teach you a lesson about abandonment. You were there to learn self-love, and I was here to teach you how to love yourself. And when you realize that this was all spiritually planned, you easily let go. That's why it's life-changing.
So how is that LBL, is that related to like Akashic records, almost like
Sort of, yeah, because you're looking at your past lives. You're looking at your relationships with all the main characters of your current life. You're finding out you had past lives with them. You're finding out that you had an agreement with them before you came into this lifetime. So how can you get angry if both of you in the spirit world said, I want to go to the earth plane, I want you to abuse me because I have to learn how to love myself. And then in turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to abandon you. I'm going to walk out on you, and you're going to be sorry I walked out on you, that you abused me, and you have to learn how to respect. Okay, good. We got it. Contract is made, right?
It's almost like it's like the backstage in between plays. Like each life is a play, right?
You're learning about your contracts, your promises, and your vows. A contract is between two or more people. A vow is to yourself. You make a promise. So if you had a past life, and say the love of your life dies in your arms, and the last words to them are, I'll never love another. You may come into this lifetime having a hard time loving people. Falling in love,
of course,
right? Because you made a vow,
right?
Or you can make a promise to somebody. I promise I'll never leave you. Now they come back in this lifetime as your son, and your son can't figure out why you're so attached. And
Right.
like you can't let them go. You're just like hovering over them all the time. So we have to do this work to break these contracts so that you can live a better life. But that's Dr. Michael Newton's work. He was phenomenal. He actually passed away while I was training with Dr. Brian Weiss, and he's do you know who that is? He wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. He's like
Okay. Yeah. I know the book.
Past Life Regression.
Yeah.
So I trained with him, and then I
Oh,
get
wow.
an email that Dr. Michael Newton passed away, and it was the fall equinox. So we were there. I was there with probably around 1,000 people, and I'm like, he's like, what? I said, Dr. Michael Newton just passed away, and he's like, oh no,
Wow.
because they were good friends. So it was interesting. So we did this whole ceremony to help him transition. So that was really, really amazing.
Wow.
But there is a book called Lives Between Lives by Dr. Michael Newton that you can, if you like to read, and you should read Many Lives, Many Masters. If you haven't read it, it'll blow your mind.
Many Lives, Many Masters. Yeah, that's
Dr.
actually
Brian Weiss. Yeah, he's a good soul. He was a psychiatrist that was working with a client with hypnosis, and she ended up speaking through her. Well, her spirit guides were speaking through her.
right.
And her spirit guides, to prove to Dr. Brian Weiss that they were spirit guides, was they gave him information only he knew.
Wow.
Through her.
Right.
The book will blow your mind.
Amazing. Amazing stuff.
Fabulous book.
Well, it's been fascinating talking to you. I know we could go on forever and
I know, right?
doing this. I do want you to stay on. I'm going to put you in the backstage and stay on so we can make some arrangements and get together and see what we could do. But I really appreciate you, Peter Marino, saying thank you for an inspiring, insightful. Thank you for being here, Peter. Thank you for excuse me,
another beautiful soul. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing your people to my show. Hopefully that's what I'd like to do, is like just switch audiences and show people who I am and learn who other people are. Excuse me 1 second again. Oh my goodness.
That's the after effects that you had that COVID.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kelly, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody before I cough. I'm going to put you backstage. I'll see you in a minute. Wow, that was really awesome. Thank you, Kerry, so much for bringing Kelly onto the show. Next week, I've got the Quiet Healer, Janice, who is a Reiki master, coming on the show. I'm excited to talk to her and introduce you guys all to her. Let me just turn off some of these. Another amazing show. Thank you for tonight. Appreciate everybody. I love people being here and listening and contributing their energy to this. So come on back next week. I've got a cough, so I'm just gonna run my my outro, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.